Breaking tonight, the Trump administration has faced unprecedented backlash, empty hearing rooms, and a ton of resistance as they tried to put together their cabinet. We're looking live tonight on the floor of the U.S. Senate as we expect the president to get the Senate's final word on his pick for Attorney General, Senator Jeff Sessions, who is in the room right now as this goes on live this evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. It is day 20 of the first 100. In the final hours of this showdown, over this nomination, we have witnessed new strains of what is left of civility among our nation's leaders. Democrats launched loaded attacks against Senator Jeff Sessions, questioning the bottom line of his character, his decency. In moments, we'll be joined by Fox News Politics editor Chris Stirewalt on how the Democrats are playing their cards here. But first, Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry joins us live on Capitol Hill with the latest on the ongoing vote. Ed.
Martha, it got pretty intense in the last 24 hours. As you suggested, racial politics basically at its worst. Accusations flying among Democrats late last night on the Senate floor, led by liberal Senator Elizabeth Warren, that basically they believe Jeff Sessions, one of their Senate colleagues, now the nominee to be Attorney General, poised to be confirmed any moment, is a racist, using in part a letter from the late Coretta Scott King, who opposed his nomination a couple of decades ago for a federal judgeship, to suggest that he intimidated elderly black voters decades ago against getting out and voting. And what was the pressure point here, the turning point, was when Elizabeth Warren suggested that Jeff Sessions is a disgrace. That led Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, the leader, of course, in this chamber, to say that violates a Senate rule about impugning the character of a colleague. In the end, Elizabeth Warren was barred from speaking again from the Senate floor as part of this debate. Some Democrats believing, though, that Mitch McConnell may have made a mistake by making her a hero. She's been celebrated on social media for the last 24 hours for standing up to Republican leaders. But the very bottom line is that Jeff Sessions is poised in the next few moments to finally, after a couple of weeks of delays, to be confirmed as the next Attorney General for President Trump. And here's the real bottom line point, and the most important message tonight in terms of the big picture is that when Jeff Sessions is confirmed, we believe in the next couple of moments, that will mean 6 cabinet picks of President Trump have been confirmed out of 15. Why is that significant? Barack Obama at this point in his presidency, as you noted, 20 days, had 13 out of 15. Donald Trump, by the end of tonight, we believe, will have 6 out of 15. So that's less than half. And that gives you an idea of the kind of delays he's been up against and why he has been so frustrated with what's been happening with the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. Interesting, because some video emerged today of Schumer from back in 2013 saying that once someone is elected president, he believes it's widely viewed by Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, that the president should get their team in place. That was Chuck Schumer in 2013, now singing a much different tune. Democrats say in part it's because they're frustrated about how Merrick Garland was treated, never getting a hearing or a vote as Barack Obama's final Supreme Court nominee. But obviously the Trump team feels like this is different. This is the beginning of an administration, not a lame duck presidency, and most of these nominees have not gotten a vote yet. But finally, Jeff Sessions getting that vote right now, Martha.
Ed, thank you very much. So here now with more, Fox News Politics editor Chris Stirewalt. Chris, good evening to you. Good to see you tonight. Howdy to you, too. You know, the bottom line is that these people are going to get through thanks to Harry Reid. So the question, the question that is posed here to the Democrats is, you know, why are you doing this? So obviously they believe it's politically expedient for them and that this is the way they should go, to kick and drag and scream on every one of these.
Well, you got to feed the bulldog, and in American politics, the bulldog is your political base, and for Democrats, they will define their party by maximum resistance to Donald Trump, probably much in the same way that Republicans defined themselves in the past 8 years, maximal resistance to Barack Obama, and they are going whole hog. They are all in.
So when you look at the words that were used by Elizabeth Warren, I mean, basically she was using the racism card. She's now playing sort of, you know, why did they make me sit down and shut up card, saying that other people, men, Ted Cruz, when he exhibited similar behavior, was not asked to do the same. Is racism and sexism, is this the way to reach the Democratic populace?
Well, we should start out and stipulate that maybe the Republican senators ought not be such special snowflakes that they can't hear a letter read from Coretta Scott King that's already in the congressional record anyway. Maybe
They're
they should.
very special snowflakes, though, most of them.
They're so special, and they have drivers, and people take them places, and they eat lovely lunches. But they should probably calm their outrage engines. However, Elizabeth Warren is leading her party down a rabbit hole. She is leading them into a trap. And the trap is that by running as the party of anti-racism and anti-sexism, basically keeping Hillary Clinton's campaign going, they are going to keep losing. If this is what they do, America in the past 50 years has come enormous lengths on the issues of race. Are there still things to be done? Yes. Do Americans wish that we could eradicate racism as it still stands? Of course. What do voters care about at home? What are the voters in counties that switch 20 and 25 points from Obama to Trump? The same voters who voted for Barack Obama and voted for Donald Trump in the upper Midwest. What do those people care about? They care about jobs, and they care about national security. Jobs and national security. Democrats used to know that. Bill Clinton knew that. LBJ knew that. FDR knew that.
Rahm Emanuel knows it, apparently.
Rahm Emanuel knows it. By goodness, he does. And Democrats have forgotten about it. They're running as the party of anti-racism. Americans hate racism, but they hate being poor more than they do addressing vestigial racism in American culture.
Chris Stirewalt, thank you, sir. Good to see you as always. So in the weeks, days, and hours leading up to this moment, Senator Sessions' imminent confirmation tonight, Democratic attacks on the veteran senator kept escalating, culminating in allegations that he is outright racist, as you heard us just discuss. Democratic Congressman Cedric Richmond wrote, quote, Senator Sessions is as much a friend of the black community and civil rights as Bull Connor and the other good old boys were during the civil rights movement. Another longtime senator, Republican Chairman Orrin Hatch, slammed what he called a standard Democratic attack line.
I've been shocked. Here's Senator Sessions has served here 20 years. Yes, he's conservative. And yes, he's from a southern state, Alabama. But it's almost like anybody from Alabama has to be, any white man from Alabama has to be a racist. And that's about the attitude you get from the Democrats today. And that's just total bunk, and everybody knows it.
Sarah Iskur Flores is spokeswoman for Attorney General Designate Sessions, and Michelle Joando is Vice President of Legal Progress and the Center for American Progress. Good to have both of you here. Michelle, first to you, react, if you would, to what you heard Senator Sessions just say. He said, in a sense, that it's sort of reverse racism.
You know, I think it's important to remember when Senator Elizabeth Warren was on the floor yesterday evening, she wasn't just reading her words, she was reading the words of one of our most beloved civil rights icon, the widow of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who in 1986, this is not in the 60s or 70s, in 1986 said that then Jeff Sessions should not be confirmed as a judge to the Alabama court. And there were a host of reasons, including his prosecutions of 3 black activists who were working on registering voters in Alabama. That is a real reason not to move forward. Right. And I think the question for voters and for everyone to look at is, have things changed that much for us to say that the reasons why we couldn't confirm him in 1986 to be a judge, has everything changed? And now Sarah, in 2017,
an opportunity to respond to what you had to say there. Sarah Iskur Flores is spokesperson for Senator Sessions. Sarah, go at it.
Well, there's so much there. So first of all, this case that she's referring to was brought on behalf of black voters who had actually complained that their votes had been changed, their absentee ballots had been changed. Second, what has changed? The witnesses at that 1986 hearing, several of whom recanted or were discredited, and you have senators in this chamber who have worked with Senator Sessions now for the last 20 years, know his character, know that he is a good man. What we're seeing is disgusting politics at work and hypocrisy and playing to your base at all costs. It's dishonorable, and it's really disappointing.
You know, Michelle, one of the words that was led to her being told that she had to be silenced last night actually came from Ted Kennedy, who said that he believed that the senator was a disgrace. And that was actually the letter, according to Senator John Cornyn, that led to that admonishment, not the Coretta Scott King letter that you pointed to.
Correct.
Well, Well, you know, yesterday, as we kind of consider what happened, that was not an admonishment around a Senator Kennedy letter. That was Senator Warren seeking to move forward to put a letter, which I should add was not entered into the record after she requested it from then Senator Strom Thurmond, and was seeking to do so yesterday. But listen, I served for a number of years in the Senate. It is one of the most wonderful institutions we have. There's a certain level of deliberateness and comity that we have.
Not anymore.
But are we really at the point that hearing words that we tend to disagree with then that means we have to censure our colleagues? I think we saw a low moment yesterday.
Of the Senate. She had agreed to those when she was sworn in. And on top of that, you have Harry Reid getting rid of the filibuster. You have Democrats at the highest levels of hypocrisy between the Biden rule, between Chuck Schumer's comments with President Obama in 2009. I mean, there's just, it would be laughable if this weren't D.C., except that we've come to accept it as acceptable.
You know, there's a difference between obstruction and resistance. And what we see right now are Democrats who are saying, you know what, I am going to resist what I see are unconstitutional moves, which are cabinet nominees that shouldn't be moving forth. The Attorney General is not the president's rule, it's the people's
There was a Politico.
Indeed, the people are an important part of this.
A Politico poll that showed that majority of Democrats agree with what Michelle's saying, that they want resist. They want obstruction if necessary, and they want their folks in the Senate to resist, and that's what we're seeing.
I'm sure they do, and I'm sure the Democrats will keep playing this losing hand. It's why for the last 8 years they've lost over 1,000 seats. And every chance that the American people have gotten to vote recently, they voted for Republicans. It's why you have a Republican White House, a Republican Senate, a Republican Congress. 25 states are under full Republican control. Do you know how many states are under Democrat control? 5 at this point. So they keep playing this hand. They keep losing it. We saw it with the war on women. We see it with this. If you disagree with them, you're racist. You're not a real woman. You're not a minority if you don't agree with the Democratic policies, and the American people keep rejecting it.
So Michelle, Sarah's saying that it's out of touch, you know, that these arguments are not where the hearts and minds of people in this country are right now, and that's why your side has been losing elections. Does that hit home at all with you?
You know what? I agree. The one thing that I will agree is that Americans aren't into labels. What we are into is how do we move forward together in a world where everyone's rights are respected equally.
But that's
and what
not
we
what
often
we've heard
see
in this argument with Senator Sessions.
Well,
I mean, look at Arlen Specter, for example, who, you know, before he passed away, asked people to reconsider Senator Sessions. He said, I was wrong on him in 1986, and now that I know the man, I feel very differently. So why, you know, is Elizabeth Warren grandstanding here? Or
well, I think it's important to also recognize that Evelyn Turner, who was one of those activists who was maliciously prosecuted by Senator Sessions, in a recent USA Today op-ed said he should not move forward to be the Attorney General. That's not anybody else's words. That's one of those 3 activists who was maliciously prosecuted.
And her son, by the way, the son of her husband and her, who were both prosecuted, endorsed Senator Sessions, as have many Alabama Democrats.
The son versus the mother. And I think we all listen to our mother as much as possible. Look,
well, clearly the son felt so strongly he
where
disagreed.
The American people want to be is they want to make sure that this government is going to represent everyone's interests. And we haven't seen that with the cabinet nominees. And the onus is not on the Democrats to prove that. The onus is on this administration. Quite frankly, the Tea Party.
Charles Schumer said in a soundbite that we have from a while back, look, you have to respect the picks of the president. That's the way he felt when President Obama was there. So all of this pushing back and all of this resistance may not reflect well with your voters in the long run. I mean, Jeff Sessions is, 99% about to be confirmed in this spot. So, I mean, at some point, does this resistance reflect really poorly on them?
I was in the Senate during the Tea Party movement, and one of the best lessons that I think Democrats are paying attention to and watching progressives all over the country is how the Tea Party movement turned into the Tea Party caucus that then has affected everything from budget negotiations to who's actually in Senate leadership, Senate and House leadership. And I think that's what you're seeing from progressives all over who are saying, we want to make sure that this government represents all of us, not just some of us, not just the 1%, not the wealthy billionaires and millionaires, but that speaks to everyone. And that's really where the resistance is.
Saying, Democrats are saying Republicans taught them all these tricks over the last 8 years, and they learned them well.
Well, and that's frankly not what any of this is about. This is about the Democrats refusing to accept that Donald Trump won the presidency. It's why they won't confirm his picks. It's why they wouldn't meet with the nominee Gorsuch for his Supreme Court nomination. Any chance they get, they wish that it could be November 7th again and that they could redo this election. But the American people voted, and they voted Donald Trump into the White House. So all of this effort isn't going to work, and they need to move on.
And Sarah Esker Flores, thank you very much. The votes are being tallied as we speak, and we expect the final results on this vote any moment now. We're going to come back to that. Also, we'll get new reaction on the silencing of Elizabeth Warren. Who won in the end? Warren or the GOP senators who reprimanded her? Dr. Charles Krauthammer and Karl Rove coming up next. Breaking tonight, big news. We are just moments now from the final tally on the nomination for Senator Jeff Sessions for Attorney General. From the state, Democrats have attacked the Sessions pick from the get-go. And as we mentioned, one of the big controversies still echoing across Washington tonight involves Senator Elizabeth Warren, and a rare move that was taken by her GOP colleagues last night to block her from any of the Sessions debate. It came after she broke Senate rules of decorum by reading a letter that described Senator Sessions as, quote, a disgrace.
He is, I believe, a disgrace to the Justice Department. Those were the words of Senator Ted Kennedy. Coretta Scott King also wrote to the Judiciary Committee, a person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws.
The senator is reminded that it is a violation of Rule 19.
Mr. President, I don't think I quite understand. I'm reading a letter from Coretta Scott King.
Not pertinent necessarily what you just shared. However, you stated that a sitting senator is a disgrace to the Department of Justice. The senator will take her seat.
That was the scene last evening, but we have breaking news right now. We can report that Senator Jeff Sessions appears to have the votes, the 51 votes that he needs to be confirmed by the full Senate as the Attorney General of the United States in the Trump administration. So we'll keep a close eye on that as that process continues. But he does appear to have the 51 that is necessary to confirm him for that position, making him the sixth person to pass that threshold for the Trump administration out of 15 in the remaining spots of the cabinet would be 9. Joining me now, Dr. Charles Krauthammer, syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor. Charles, good to see you this evening. Welcome. Your thoughts on what we are seeing, we're witnessing here, and also on the Elizabeth Warren moment that we just all listened to.
Well, I have a piece of breaking news. The sun will rise in the east tomorrow. Look, everybody has known that Sessions was going to be confirmed. What we saw over the last 24 hours or so was kabuki theater. The Democrats are completely powerless, so they're trying to get attention, and they are also trying to placate a very agitated base that has not recovered from Election Day. It has occasional remissions, but the anxiety and the depression are still there, so they have to appease them. But this was all for show. And what we saw as part of that show was Elizabeth Warren being quieted and being essentially shut down by the GOP, which I thought sort of helped everybody. It sure made her, it made her day.
Yeah,
it gave her tremendous attention, probably a lot of cash for 2020. Mm-hmm. And for Republicans, they didn't look that good, but they've got the majority. They're going to get the cabinet. They're going to get their Supreme Court nominee. And if you're looking at this nefariously, and I think with Mitch McConnell, you've got to assume that he usually looks 2 steps ahead. Who would you rather have as the front runner for the Democrats than Elizabeth Warren? If you can give her a gratuitous boost, why not? If the Democrats run a left-wing Democrat, they're more likely to lose than if they run a centrist. So I think it's win-win all around here.
So you think this is a very crafty move, even if it made him look bad temporarily by Senator McConnell. I just want to put up a tweet because you mentioned the prior election, and Elizabeth Warren may be thinking, as you point out, Charles, quite clearly about the next election and getting herself ready for that. She's done a ton of fundraising off what happened last night. And here, Hillary Clinton sent out this tweet, and she's quoting Mitch McConnell. She was warned. She was given an explanation. Nevertheless, She persisted, and then Hillary Clinton adds at the bottom, so must we all, Charles.
Oh, my. Well, if you're going to rely on an endorsement from, shall we say, the most shocking loser, except for the Atlanta Falcons, in our lifetime, I don't think you're off to a good start. This is sort of the old theme, the Republicans and the war on women. You know, a gentleman telling a woman to be quiet. They play this card every time. It never works. So if they want to exhaust themselves, the Democrats, on playing that card, be my guest. Whether McConnell was actually thinking of a three-cushion shot here, I have no idea. But I'd like to think he was.
Senators in the chamber wishing
Charles, thank you very much.
to change their vote.
My pleasure.
If not,
Senator
the
Warren
ayes
isn't
are
the only
52,
lawmaker
the nays
unlikely
are
to
47.
get behind President Trump and his cabinet picks anytime soon. A new online poll from Politico shows a majority of Democratic voters are giving elected officials the green light to obstruct at every single turn along the way here. Joining me now, Karl Rove. He is former Deputy Chief of Staff under President George W. Bush and a Fox News political contributor. And Karl, I know we're going to listen in here, Karl, for 1 second. Let's just enjoy this moment.
Majority Leader.
I move to reconsider the vote on the
Do you have
nomination.
order?
I move to reconsider the vote.
Question is on the motion to be reconsidered.
I move to table the motion to reconsider.
The question is on the motion to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
I ask unanimous consent.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I ask unanimous consent the mandatory quorum call be waived.
Is there objection? Without objection.
All right, let's bring in Karl Rove for comment on this. Former Deputy Chief of Staff, as we said, under President George W. Bush. Karl, you look at that vote, it's pretty close. Tillerson's vote was also pretty close, and I'm reminded of the fact that Senator Sessions voted to confirm Eric Holder for President Obama, and those votes were much stronger with much less opposition.
Yeah, look, I thought one of your previous guests who sort of blamed us on the Republicans forgot the fact, she said the Tea Party set this in motion. When President Obama came in, virtually every one of his nominees was supported, many of them in voice votes. The president was given the due deference that any president deserves to put his cabinet in place. The degree of partisanship that is being exhibited now is beyond belief. It is not helpful to the process. In the short run, I think it's helpful to the Democrats, particularly the left wing of the Democrats, as Charles said, but it's also helpful to the Republicans. But ultimately, this just leads to more poisoning of the water, more poison into the atmosphere, and more difficulty to bring our country together.
Pretty poisonous, to be sure. And to that, I want to play for everybody at home and for you, Karl, this from Senator Tim Scott. He stood up and read some of the tweets that he received for supporting Senator Jeff Sessions. Watch this.
A white man in a black body. You are a disgrace to the black race. How does a black man turn on his own? Senator Tim Scott is not an Uncle Tom. He doesn't have a shred of honor. He's a house Negro, like the one in Django. I'm a complete horror. A black man who is a racist against black people. A big Uncle Tom piece of fertilizer. Think for yourselves. You are a disgrace to your race. I left out all the ones that used the N-word. Just felt like that would not be appropriate.
That is sad. And that's where we are, Karl.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's amazing to me is the characterization of, look, I understand Coretta Scott King's letter. Let's talk about that case for a minute. A group of local black elected officials in Perry County, Alabama, complained to the U.S. Attorney about fraud because in this county of roughly 15,000 people, more people had cast absentee ballots than in the entire city of Birmingham, which has 700,000 people. And there was pretty widespread sense that in this largely black community, that black elected officials had an effort led against them by other blacks to play around with the absentee ballots. Now, one of the three people charged was a longtime associate of the King family. And I can understand Coretta Scott King coming forward and at the time defending her family friend. But the fact of the matter is that this was not a case involving white versus black or black versus white. This was an overwhelmingly black county with black elected officials who felt that they had been the victims of election chicanery by other blacks, and the U.S. attorney had an obligation to investigate and file charges if need be.
Carl, thank you very much. Karl Rove joining us tonight. So we are also tracking the legal fight over the president's executive order restricting travel from 7 countries and identified as hotbeds of terror. These 3 judges hold that fate in their hands tonight. And while no decision is set for right now, an announcement from this panel is expected really at any time as the decision order hangs in the balance. Mr. Trump is calling on the courts to do the right thing. Here he is talking about that.
And I don't ever want to call a court biased, so I won't call it biased. And we haven't had a decision yet. But courts seem to be so political. And it would be so great for our justice system if they would be able to read a statement and do what's right.
To Trace Gallagher now in our LA newsroom. Hi, Trace.
Hi, Martha. When you consider about national security, it all comes down to the vetting process for refugees and visa applicants. And Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly says the problem is the U.S. government has very little information to work with. He says customs agents are forced to rely mainly on background questions and documentation. And when you are dealing with failed states like Syria and Somalia, the documentation, including passports and driver's licenses, is often inaccurate. So when you ask someone what town they're from and what they do for a living, it comes down to the honor system. And Secretary Kelly says when you're dealing with national security, that is not good enough. One idea being bandied about by DHS is the ability to fully check a refugee or visa applicant's social media footprint. Listen.
But if they come in and say, we want to say, for instance, what websites do you visit, and give us your passwords so that we can see what they do on the internet. And, you know, this might be a week, might be a month. They may wait some time for us to vet. If they don't want to give us that information, then they don't come. We may look at we want to get on their social media with passwords. What do you do? What do you say? If they don't want to, cooperate, then they don't come in.
Secretary Kelly says looking at phone records and financial records might also be a possibility. Back in December, the Obama administration began asking foreign travelers to voluntarily provide their Facebook, Twitter, and other social media accounts upon arrival in the U.S. They were not asked for passwords, but it still drew big-time opposition from privacy advocates and tech giants like Facebook and Google, who said it threatens free expression. But if you look back at the San Bernardino terrorists, private Facebook messages sent by the wife, Tashfeen Malik, years before the attack did indicate that she had been radicalized. And she was not from one of the 7 mostly Muslim countries included in President Trump's temporary travel ban. Experts also point out fake social media accounts and private accounts are very easy to create, and that the bad guys would likely find a way around whatever vetting policy DHS puts in place. Martha.
Thanks, Trace. So joining us now with their take, Republican Congressman Sean Duffy was one of President Trump's first supporters in Congress, and Robert Zimmerman is a Democratic strategist and DNC committee member. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here tonight. I want to get first to this piece of news that happened just a little while ago, and it has to do with Judge Gorsuch, who made some comments about President Trump's comments on the judiciary. Here is what Senator Blumenthal, who spoke with Judge Gorsuch today, had to say about their discussion.
He certainly expressed to me that he is disheartened by the demoralizing and abhorrent comments made by President Trump about the judiciary.
Representative Duffy, what do you think about that? Is that a problem for you?
Well, first off, I think this is through the lens of a Democrat senator, so we have to take that.
It was confirmed. The comment was confirmed by Judge Gorsuch's spokesperson as well.
Okay, so with that said, listen, I don't want our president to go after the courts, whether it's Donald Trump going after the courts or when it was Barack Obama who went after the Supreme Court in the State of the Union in 2009 or 2010. I think it's counterproductive, especially when you have a case in front of the court But I think what Donald has done very well today is he actually laid out the law that the court is supposed to be considering in regard to his temporary pause. And I think to educate the American people about what he's doing, why he's doing it, and why he's legally right is incredibly important. None of us should be surprised, Martha. Donald Trump, one of his key campaign issues was, I'm going to go through an extreme vetting process to make sure I keep you and your family safe, to make sure terrorists don't infiltrate our refugee program.
All right. Laura Ingraham, who's been a big supporter of President Trump, had this to say in a tweet with regard to Judge Gorsuch. She was none too happy about his comments. She said Judge Gorsuch's comments about President Trump's tweets are concerning. Judges Pryor or Hardiman know better doesn't bode well. Robert, what do you think of it?
Well, that's Laura Ingraham being what she is, just a right-wing talk radio hostess. And sadly, she has too much support amongst too many Republican members of Congress and those who are more concerned with partisan talking points than
Robert, she's merely expressing her opinion about Judge Gorsuch's comments, and in her mind, she's saying that she thinks this is problematic for him as the nominee, and that's what I'm asking you to comment on.
Well, quite frankly, Martha, I think it's to his credit that he spoke up and defended the integrity of the judiciary.
Well, it may work well with him in the Senate confirmation process then, and maybe that's exactly what he was doing,
that's
showing
not
his
going to be
independence.
enough. But the bigger issue, Martha, is the fact that President Trump has pursued a strategy of insulting judges who disagree with him, actually attacking Judge Curiel with such vile language that Speaker of the House Paul Ryan said his language was the textbook definition of racism. And the sad aspect of it is, to paraphrase Donald Trump, even a bad high school student would know the separation of powers and the system of checks and balances in our country.
You know,
at the end of the day,
Chris Stirewalt talked before about senators, who are fragile snowflakes. And I just want to throw the idea out there for a moment that perhaps these judges also are human beings, and that in some cases things do become politicized, and that's what President Trump is commenting on here. Is it? Do we live in a world
Martha,
where
we
can't say anything about a judge or suggest that perhaps they're politicized? Which many listening to that call last night might have come away with the same response?
Martha, when he refers to a judge as a so-called judge or uses racist language to describe another judge, he's not making an intellectual argument. He's obviously trying to stoke fear and play to the great panic.
He's expressing an opinion, as you're doing right now. Representative Duffy, what do you think?
Listen, I would just say, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And when he disagrees with people, for good, bad, or the ugly, he goes after them. I just think he has to realize he has a different position today as president, and we have a great balance between the presidency, the executive branch, and our courts. I would just note that if Judge Gorsuch thinks that he's going to get any love from the left by making comments like this about Mr. Trump, President Trump, he is sorely mistaken. If he's going to get 8 senators to vote for him, the left is going to go absolutely wild. So I think he should realize who are his friends and be very cautious about what he says about the man who gave him the nomination.
Congressman, this is not about friendships.
Robert Zimmerman, thank you.
Okay.
Congressman Duffy, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Also tonight, President Trump moves to defend his daughter after a growing number of retailers decide to dump her brand. Plus, Missouri becomes the latest state to go head-to-head with the unions. Is this another Wisconsin? And the Missouri governor next on why he has decided to take on the unions in his state. There's a live shot of the Senate where they have just confirmed Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama, who will be sworn in soon, we are told, as the next Attorney General of the United States. He takes over the job that was held by Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder, and no doubt will be a very different representative as the Attorney General under the Trump administration. We see everybody sort of milling around there as they get ready for confirmation. They're also dealing with the Tom Price nomination, which is next up on the list. We'll take you back there as news demands. In the meantime, also tonight, President Trump has made it a point to sort of play nice with the unions. Some of the leadership was invited to the White House almost right away after he was sworn in, many of whom have been surprised in terms of the support for his candidacy last November, which is usually mostly Democratic in its support. But could that be at odds with some of the battles that we're seeing on the state level? One of them came this week in Missouri, as the Show Me State became the 28th right-to-work state in this nation. Here with me now, the man who just signed that legislation into law, the new Missouri governor. He was elected in November. Eric Crichton, it's good to have you here. Governor, welcome.
Martha, great to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
So you have a right-to-work state, which means that if you are in a union shop, basically, you don't have to pay the dues and you don't have to, write your check for an agenda that you might not agree with politically, right?
That's exactly right. Right to work is really simple, and it just says that anyone in the state of Missouri can work at a job without being forced to pay dues to a union that they might disagree with. And the reason why this is so important for us to get done is that it leads to more jobs. You know, Martha, I'm a conservative outsider, came to Jefferson City to fight for the people of Missouri, and we're willing to take on these fights because it's going to lead to more jobs and bigger paychecks for the people of the state of Missouri.
Well, you remember what happened with Scott Walker. He ended up having a recall vote. People were climbing in and out of the windows of the State House. Are we likely to see the same situation in Missouri?
Well, I can tell you for sure we've had a tremendous battle here in the state of Missouri. During the campaign even, we had union bosses that spent millions of dollars attacking me. They attacked my service as a Navy SEAL. They attacked the work that I'd done with veterans. They're going to continue to attack us. But look, you know, I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm a fighter. I came to Jefferson City to fight for the people. And if we have to take on the union bosses, we're going to do that. We're going to take on the trial lawyers. We'll take on the special interests, the career politicians, the political insiders. We're putting an end to politics as usual so we can take Missouri in a new direction and make sure we get results for the people.
It's pretty hard to imagine someone actually going after someone because of their service as a Navy SEAL, but apparently they did. You saw the president sort of embracing the union leadership, and you know there was a lot of blue collar crossover in this election, which is very interesting, and a lot of Republicans really want to try to build on that strength. So, are you working against that?
No, we had tremendous support from people all over the state of Missouri who recognize that our agenda represents hope to make sure that we've got more jobs and higher pay here in the state of Missouri. And we just went out and we made our case to people, and it's one of the reasons why we had so much support from people all over the state of Missouri. You know, we pointed to some of our fellow Midwestern states like Indiana and Michigan, which both signed right to work and have been leading the country in new factory job growth. We let people know that, you know, folks in right to work states today are earning more money than people in the state of Missouri. The fact is this is going to lead to more jobs and higher pay, and it's one of the reasons why, you know, the people are smart. And they recognize that some of the elites, whether they're union bosses, special interest insiders, career politicians, they've been pushing a lot of falsehoods. People sent us to fight for them. That's what we're doing, and we're really excited about the tremendous support that we've built for this across the state of Missouri.
Interesting story. Governor Greitens, thank you very much. Good to have you here tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So also tonight, President Trump moves to defend his daughter after a growing number of retailers decide to dump her brand. He tweeted this: "My daughter Ivanka has been treated so unfairly by Nordstrom. She is a great person, always pushing me to do the right thing. Terrible!" Exclamation point. See what's happened since that when we come back. Developing tonight, retailers are taking on Ivanka Trump and backing off her clothing and shoe brand. Nordstrom has officially severed ties with the first daughter's product line, and other retailers Neiman Marcus, Belk, and Jet have also pulled her products from their websites. Marshalls and TJ Maxx also created some controversy when they told employees to throw all Ivanka Trump signs in the garbage. Here now is Katrina Pearson, America First Policy spokesperson and former Trump campaign spokesperson, and Jessica Tarlov, Democratic pollster and senior director of research at Bustle.com. Ladies, good to have you here tonight.
Yeah, hi, Martha.
Kat, what do you make of it?
Well, I mean, clearly there is politics involved here. I can tell you as a consumer and someone that's familiar with Ivanka Trump's brand, that it is doing quite well. And based upon the statement that they put out, that the brand is actually expanding, I have no reason to doubt that, because there are many young women entering the workplace, working women like myself, who appreciate quality, classy business apparel at an affordable price. So the brand hasn't changed, Martha, but what has changed is the political activism on behalf of CEOs or retailers in this case, something that this cycle has seen that we haven't seen in the past.
I mean, it does seem very coincidental. You know, I mean, I can't really understand any retailer deciding not to sell something if people want to buy it, right? I mean, that just, it just doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
But when you've got all of these people sort of piling on simultaneously, it does smack of some sort of political message that they're trying to send.
Well, that's a different issue than what Katrina's talking about. I think the American public was sending a message that they don't want to support Ivanka Trump or
by extension, her father there. But this is just free market capitalism. This should be celebrated in this country. Donald Trump claims he is a free market capitalist, actually. So I don't understand what the problem here is. Americans were not showing up to buy these products. Why should stores continue to carry them when they're not making a profit?
I mean,
Nordstrom released their numbers, and they showed the downward spiral there. And Ivanka, or the company at least, commented that she was notified in early January of the fact that they were going to sever ties with her brand.
Well, Katrina, what about her commitment? Because Ivanka Trump said that she was removing herself, from the company so that she could go to Washington. Her husband is a close advisor to the president, obviously. And the president has also said he's going to step away from his interests. So this tweet raised a lot of eyebrows with people who said, wait a minute, I thought they weren't really involved in that stuff anymore.
Well, she's removing herself from the company, and the president definitely tweeted to defend his daughter from something that is more of a political activism, not necessarily because of the sales, as I said before. The brand is doing very well, and the company says that they're even expanding.
But at
there are a lot
Nordstrom,
of people,
at TJ Maxx,
there are a
talk
lot
about
of
these
people that are
specific
currently
retailers
buying the brand. But more importantly, Ivanka Trump is the daughter of the President of the United States. We have seen her attacked publicly. We have seen her attacked when she's been privately with her family. And because there is a pile on, Martha, and we talk about timing here, it really is uncanny how these retailers, which most retailers by this time have already purchased from their vendors for this season, suddenly the president signs a ban, a travel moratorium, and suddenly now her brand's not doing so great? That just doesn't make sense.
Well, I love that you use the word ban, since you guys denied for so long that it was a ban. So that's thrilling here. I think that's what has happened, is there has been a hit to her sales, as each of these companies have discussed. We also should get to the fact that Donald Trump is meddling in the free market, like he did with Carrier, like he did with Lockheed Martin, like he did with Boeing. And the administration wants us to celebrate when there are more jobs created, the 700 allegedly that were created from the Carrier deal, for instance. And I want every American to have a good, high-paying job. But this is an abuse of the presidency. Ethics czars have said this as well. What you're seeing is free market capitalism at work that should be celebrated on both sides of the aisle.
Well, Jessica, the American people aren't speaking. The American people aren't speaking. This is someone that did a hashtag out of San Francisco.
This is not about women.
It's not about empowerment.
Thank you,
It's
ladies.
not about
We
any
gotta
of
go.
that.
Jessica, Katrina, good to see you both. So we have some more news breaking on Capitol Hill. The Senator Sessions decision you have heard. He is now addressing some of the people who were describing him as a disgrace just 24 hours ago. Back on that, and more news on Tom Price as well in a moment.
So I want to thank those of you who supported me and had confidence in me in moving this forward. I want to thank President Donald Trump. He believes in the rule of law. He believes in protecting the American people from crime and violence. He believes in a lawful system of immigration that serves the national interest. And within bounds, those are things that may, from time to time, come before the Office of Attorney General. And I look forward to lawfully and properly advancing those items and others.
Senator Jeff Sessions, just moments ago on the U.S. Senate floor, bidding farewell to his Senate colleagues and following his confirmation as the next Attorney General. And we're just learning that he is expected to be sworn in tomorrow. For more, we go to our chief national correspondent for a quick wrap-up of the breaking news tonight. Ed Henry is still live with us on Capitol Hill. Ed.
Well, Martha, good to see you. In fact, Jeff Sessions delivering that farewell address as we speak on the Senate floor. Interesting, a moment ago he was talking about how he's always been courteous to colleagues, maybe a not so subtle shot to Elizabeth Warren and other Democrats who are accusing him of being a racist. Jeff Sessions supporters noting he is someone who, as Attorney General of Alabama years ago, desegregated the schools in that state and also prosecuted a KKK leader. A lot of that forgotten in this fiery debate. Bottom line, he was just confirmed 52 to 47, obviously a party line vote. Only one Democrat, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, supporting him. But just moments ago, Manchin revealing while he voted yes on Sessions, he'll vote no on Tom Price, the president's pick to be Health and Human Services Secretary. Democrats have concerns about him buying health care stocks, among other things. Because of these delaying tactics, Price will finally get a vote, yes, 2 a.m. Friday morning. Martha?
Wow. Ed, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
So Senator Sessions has spent a great deal of his time in the Senate on the issue of immigration. There's been much said about what he has said in the past and what he believes. So his own words are our quote of the night. He said this: Republican voters believe we should have a lawful system of immigration that serves the national interest. They don't believe we should commit the United States to further globalist policies that diminish the sovereignty and freedom of Americans to act in their own interest. He will lead the Justice Department now under President Donald Trump. Thanks for joining us on another busy night. Stick around. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody.